the business is really starting to kind of pick up a little bit. We hire some of our first people, and Father's Day of 2022, I get served papers. I'm being sued for hundreds of thousands of dollars from the previous company I was with. And I'm just shocked.
Hey everybody, we're here today with returning guest Alex Wells, and last time he was here we talked a lot about business and digital marketing, but today he's here to share his life story of a lot of adversity and a lot of struggle and overcoming many challenges that have led him to become the man he is today. You've got to check out this episode. Alex Wells, welcome back, man.
It's good to be here, man.
Round two.
Yeah, round two.
Yeah. Last time you were here, we dove real deep into digital marketing and what your company does. But you got a story, man.
Yeah.
You got a really cool story that I think a lot of people need to hear. Tons of value in it. And as you and I have gotten to know each other over the years, you've just shared more and more of it, man. And it's time to share it, dude. So take us back, man. Take us back to where you grew up, where you came from, how you got here.
Yeah. It's I'm excited to share this because I think I could probably count on two hands how many people have actually told my story. But I think it's one that people should hear because, it's supposed to allow people to understand that you can have hope, and it really all goes back to Loveland, Colorado. That's where I grew up. That's where we're at now. I grew up in Loveland, Colorado. I was the only child of a commercial drywaller and a stay-at-home mom. And I had a decent childhood. Yeah, I think there was a good portion of my life, probably, majority of the time up until I was about 12 years old, where I didn't know there was a problem. I was just enjoying life, making friends, playing sports, just doing the things, right? As a kid does. And, I loved my mom. My mom was a great stay-at-home mom. She devoted a lot of time into trying to make sure that I was educated. That was important to her. She didn't want me to have to grow up and use my hands. She really wanted to make sure that I was well educated. And so she devoted a lot of time to that. And I'm still just very grateful for the time that she devoted to that, because I was always exceptional in school most of my life. And I think that a big part of that was the fact that was so important to her.
Yeah.
And my dad, I always thought my dad was a great dad. And, he, despite working all the time, in a really hard industry where you don't make good money, he would also make sure that when he got home from work, he would spend time with me. We would play catch, and he would do a lot of things that I feel like you sometimes don't see people get from dads, right? I feel like he did a good job, and I'm grateful for that too. But little did I know, there was a lot of really bad things going on that I just was blind to as a kid, just assuming everything was great.
Because you said didn't know there was a problem.
Yeah, I had no idea there was a problem. There was a big problem. And it really started to shed light or show its evil head when I was about 12 years old. So my mom and dad later in life, as about 2000, about wake the millennium, really, they decided to start a business together. And my dad was the hand, and he was definitely he's somebody even to this day, like in that industry, in the commercial drywall industry, has so much experience, knows everything like the back of his hand, and has a really good reputation. And so he could be that guy for the business. So they started this commercial drywall company, and my mom was the books, right? She was managing the finances, kind of keeping track of all that. She had a good skill set with a lot of that stuff because she did that for our family, our whole life as well. And what really started to happen was I think that brought additional level of stress and a lot of other things. And so certain things started to show up suddenly. And what that was, later I learned that, my dad was addicted to drugs, and my mom was not the patron saint either by any means when it came to that, but he had a problem. And I don't know, I still have no idea how that was something that was so easily hidden for so long. But it seemed like he was functionally addicted.
Yeah.
And I think he used it for work in a lot of ways. But when they got into the business, all of a sudden that became a really big issue out of nowhere. And what happened is they started to have marriage problems, which led to problems in the business. And then they started kind of getting to the point of divorce, right? And splitting up. And when you're running a business together, that becomes really messy. And so, I'm 12 years old. I'm about to get to the point where I'm, in middle school sports, playing football, all this stuff. And it just exploded. It exploded. Our whole entire family just exploded. And all of a sudden my dad's not there, or he's living out in the garage, or all kinds of different things.
And for you, at your 12-year-old perspective, everything's good. And then it's just like that. Now everything's not.
Just dynamite explosion out of nowhere. And I remember just kind of, you're still so young and you're trying to figure out what's going on, and nobody's really talking to you about what's going on. And I'm trying to comprehend this situation. Well, it continued to get worse and worse and worse and worse, to the point of all of a sudden they're screaming, yelling, and just huge explosive fights. And I would have to, go back into my bedroom and just turn on the TV as loud as I possibly could and try to ignore what was going on. Well, one night it started to get so bad, and I was like, I can't do it anymore. So I turn off the TV, open the door, walk out, and my dad comes running by, and looks at me in the eyes, and I looked at him and I was like, you need to get out of here right now. And you could just see the look on his face, like he really knew he screwed up. It's like, wow, I can't believe that my son's in this position and this is what's going on. And, that resulted in cops coming, arrests, all kinds of stuff. And this was just such a crazy experience. And then I had to go from that night. I went to a field trip for school the next day, which was really challenging to do. We went to the YMCA, sixth grade, and I'm sent to this, and I'm trying to, process what's going on, but also just understand, like, this is the beginning of middle school. This is the first thing with all my classmates. We're combining elementary schools. I'm trying to get to know people, make friends. And you're already having to process that as a preteen of like, is anybody gonna like me? Is everything gonna be okay? Are all my friends that I had, are they still going to be my friends? Like, do I understand how to use a locker? Like, all this stuff. And I was able to get through that, had a good time. I remember the experience vividly. I was enjoying myself, making friends. And then we pack up, come back. And as we come back, my mom picks me up from school, drives me home, says nothing to me. My dad's car's in the driveway. And I'm like, whiplash. Like, what is going on? Like, I have no idea. What do you guys remember what just happened? And she kind of took a moment, like, hey, we're going to work on things and try to make it work. And I'm like, okay, cool. Obviously, I love that. Love my parents. I want you guys to be together.
Because he left. When you said leave, he left?
He left.
Now he's back.
Yeah, and he even got arrested that night.
Got it.
Too.
Yeah.
So I'm like somewhat terrified, but also excited at the same time, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe they're going to make it work. It's fine. Well, they did. They tried. But over the course of that next year, things continued to happen. And almost a year later to the day, all of a sudden he's out again. They split up. He's out. He's running around trying to continue to work and make money, but also he's not around. Well, we go on a vacation together, just my mom and I, before the school year starts. And we come back and he's at home. And we decided that we're going to go live in a motel. And we stayed at this motel here in Loveland, the King's Court.
Damn. Yeah. Know that place.
Yep. And I'm like, what is going on? This is crazy. Like,
they've got a pool there, right?
Yeah. Right. And so I spent pretty much the first month of my 7th grade year living in a motel while they're going back and forth and trying to figure out what's going on. And I was also trying to play football. It was football season. I am playing quarterback. Everything's good in sports. Like, that's my world. That's what I do. And my dad comes to football practice to watch. Well, somebody sees him there, and I don't know still to this day who it was, but somebody decided to report this to the cops. He was apparently had warrants out for his arrest at the time. And it's the end of practice. Cops show up and start chasing him around the park. This is by Loveland Lake over here. Start chasing him around. There's like 4 or 5 cops chasing him around in front of all of the people I know, all of my friends.
Are you a small business trying to navigate all of the landscape of digital marketing and don't know where to go? Reach out to one of our sponsors, Imprint Digital. They are the go-to source for all things digital marketing. They are the producers of this podcast, and they run all of the marketing for all of my companies. Check them out at imprint-digital.com. Is the paint or roof on your home or business starting to look a little shabby? If so, reach out to one of our sponsors, M&D Painting and Roofing. M&D Painting and Roofing is a full-service residential and commercial painting and roofing contractor in Northern Colorado. And full disclosure, I'm the M in M&D. Check them out at mandpainting.com.
That's right.
Do they know that's your dad?
Yeah.
They do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the way that ended was, I'm sitting there. I go sit in the truck with my grandpa at the time. And I just hear screaming, yelling, just everything. And I just start crying, like I'm just bawling because it's like, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is going on in front of everybody. This is embarrassing. I don't even know how I'm going to come back and see these people at practice again, and go to school the next day, all that kind of stuff. And he got arrested. And I didn't see my dad again for 6 years after that. And he got arrested and went to jail for assault on a police officer.
So that chase turned into a fight?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, somehow, I have a very good perspective of the police. Respect it. Love it. But somehow one guy beat up 5 and got assaulted on a police officer. I just think that's an interesting experience. And I heard what was going on, and it did not sound like that. But here we are. Now, we go back home after living in the motel, and we start the process of trying to figure out how we're living, just her and I. And I'm trying to figure out, my dad's in jail. I'm going to school, going through puberty, playing sports, girl crazy, all this stuff. And I'm also trying to figure out how this relationship with my mother works alone.
Yeah. And
despite our great background up to that point, there started to be a very big disconnect. And our relationship really never was the same, and still to this day isn't. And a lot of that also led to, my mom trying to figure out her life alone as well. And I want to say within less than 6 months, there's a new guy in the picture out of nowhere, right? And I remember this guy is my stepdad now. And the first time I met him, he walks in the front door of my house, is smoking a cigarette. And I'm like, who are you? 13-year-old adolescent, I'm starting to be like, hey, I'm the man of the house. I got to really Yeah. He's just smoking a cigarette in the front door. And I'm like, hey, we don't smoke in here. Doesn't even care. So that was how our relationship started. And that led to, them ending up getting pregnant. And my mom did not tell me that she was pregnant until she had to tell me she was pregnant, like to where she's walking around showing.
You're like, Mom,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Yeah. I'm like, what's going on? And, then they end up getting the marriage certificate, getting married, trying to figure out how this new life works, but also like being a teenager, making friends, playing sports, doing all that stuff. And like, I was living through my friendships.
Yeah.
Because at home, we were breaking down this whole entire experience. I'm very resentful. I start to get very frustrated. I feel like I'm not getting communication that I deserve. Nobody's telling me what's going on. And I'm just living and growing up alone.
And this was like all within a year, right? So
Yeah.
12, you're now 13. So like everything's good, happy-go-lucky, no
Mm-hmm.
issues. Mom's there, dad's there. Kind of the, leave it to Beaver.
Yep.
And then just shit hits the fan.
Yeah. Yeah. And like
now
we were,
some dude with a cigarettes in your living room. You're like, who's this guy? And now mom's pregnant.
yeah. It was just wild. It was such a crazy experience. I mean, we were never wealthy when I was young by any means. I mean, commercial drywall, you don't make good money, but we had a house, we had food, I had friends, everything was fine. But, so all this stuff's going on and I'm definitely just reaching out more and more to friends and really living through kind of their families, spending a lot of time at other people's houses, like, just trying to find peace in that. And, luckily I had developed great friendships and I had great teammates in sports and, we did very well in sports and it was fun and it was competitive and I was learning and I was growing. And well, 8th grade comes around, all of a sudden my stepdad and my mom are talking about moving. I'm like, dude, this is all I have right now. Like, I barely know you guys. This is everything to me. Like, why are we moving? I already have high school football coaches telling me I'm going to play quarterback. Like I already know the basketball coach, he's excited about me coming and playing, being a part of the team. And, so I assumed I was moving and everybody thought I was moving, at the beginning of 8th grade to the point where I was having to tell my basketball coach, like, I'm not going to be playing all this stuff. Well, we didn't move yet. We finished out 8th grade and, it was a great experience and I continued to get closer and closer with my friends and, we had some great seasons in sports and it was exciting and I'm thinking, okay, we're going to go into high school. This is going to be great. And, summer right before, high school, my mom comes into my bedroom, drops a box on my bed and says, it's time to pack. I'm like, what is going on all the time? Like nobody's communicating with me. So it was such a crazy experience. I'm like, where are we going? Well, we're moving to Canyon City, Colorado. That's where my grandparents lived. And I had visited my grandparents and I'd been to Canyon City before and I was not looking forward to going to Canyon City.
No. Shout out to Joey.
Yeah. So I pack up, we pack up the house, we get everything together. I have to say bye to my friends. I had a little celebration with everybody. All my friends got together at the park, all said our goodbyes. We're all crying. It's just bye, and, so I moved to Canyon City. We didn't even have a house. We weren't even moving to a house. We were going to live with my grandparents. As a 14-year-old going and living in a small house with his grandparents and his newly born sister. And so I moved there. There's nothing to do in Canyon City. I don't know anybody. It's summertime, right before high school. The only thing I could do was, well, I'm playing football. So what are they doing in the summertime? Weightlifting. Cool. Okay, sign me up. And first day in Canyon City of going to weightlifting, my mom takes me to the varsity weightlifting time instead of the freshman
You get to meet the team.
weightlifting time. So my first meeting with the football team is all these varsity players, these big old dudes, and I'm walking around. At the time, I had like long blonde hair, and they're like, "Where are you from?" "Oh, I'm from Loveland, Colorado." Well, Loveland, Colorado beat them in the playoffs the year before.
Oh, so you're off to a not good start.
Yep. They're like, "Well, what position you play?" I'm like, "Well, I play quarterback." Okay. They start calling me Sunshine from Remember the Titans.
Yeah.
Yep. So all these big guys, Sunshine. I'm like, oh, this is just so great. I'm really enjoying this experience. So I spent that whole summer trying to make friends in the football team. Everybody really kind of resented me. I didn't really connect with them very well. But I just lifted weights, maybe went to the pool sometimes, went to the park to play basketball, spent a lot of time alone, just kind of processing what's going on, getting ready for high school. And that experience in Canyon City, it was mind-blowing. It's like a different world. And I just never really connected with the football team. They already had a guy they wanted to play quarterback. I'm having to change positions and just figure out a way that I can start, so I'm playing wide receiver and free safety and doing all this other stuff. And then I'm still struggling having a relationship with my family, and bless my grandparents. Luckily, I had a decent relationship with my grandma and grandpa. They're really there for me during those years. But it just continued to kind of get weirder and weirder where, I'm getting bullied. I'm getting, a lot of resentment and hate and all this stuff. And I'm just this like happy-go-lucky, positive dude. And it's like people hated it. They're like, what's your deal, man? You're walking around the hallways getting bullied, just smiling at everybody all the time. Like, dude, I'm just here to have a good time. I just want to meet people.
Yeah.
Can I comment on that real quick?
Of course.
So the thing about Alex, when he came into the picture, everybody called him Sunshine. He started like garnering.
This is Joey, by the way, our producer.
Hi, I'm Joey, the producer.
He pops in on these sometimes now.
I love it.
Yeah.
And when he got into town, he was confident and he was happy and he was positive, and us Canyon City people didn't like that much. Mm-hmm. And girls liked him. So he'd come in, polo shirt, popped collar.
I sure did.
With all these girls.
Yeah.
And everybody didn't like that so much.
They're like, F this guy.
Exactly.
This guy.
Yep. It's true.
Because Joey, you guys are on the same grade, right? Or at least in school together?
He's one ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. Well, so that's a
Little
good way
context.
to put it. Yeah.
So you went from Sunshine to A-Dub.
Yeah.
Right.
It was so weird because in Loveland I was friends with everybody. I didn't have enemies. There was nothing like that. And then all of a sudden I was just in a completely different environment world, and there's still nothing to do. Right. And so, yeah. And then, I made it through that year. I played sports. I did all that, and I tried to make friends. I made a few friends despite the challenges in doing so. But after my freshman year, my parents finally decided we're going to move out of grandparents' house. They don't involve me in looking for the house or nothing. We just start to pack up. I remember I was riding in the back of a truck, just laying down, looking up. They're taking me to the house we're moving to. And I'm laying there, and I see, as we're pulling in, a phone line that goes over the top. And then I look over at the house, and I'm like, oh my God, we're moving to a little shack. And then there's the front door doesn't work, right? So you have to go in through the back door. I walk in the back door. I'm walking through this house. It's this tiny, tiny, tiny little shotgun house. I'm walking through. I'm like, where am I sleeping? And they're like, oh, well, you're going to sleep back here. And they take me to this entryway of the house, not a room, entryway. And I'm like, there's no door. This isn't a room. This is supposed to be the front entrance of the house. There's no closet. There's no shelves. There's no nothing. There's also a crack from the floor all the way up to the ceiling. And I'm like, where am I going to put my bed? So I spent from sophomore year through my senior year sleeping in the entryway of a house that had a crack from the ceiling to the floor. My bed I had to take and I had to put 2 little 2x4s on the ground where the step up from the front door was to get into the house so that my bed would actually sit flat. And I had to take a rod and put it up so that I could hang my clothes. And I was mad. I was frustrated. I started to get very, very, very much just so resentful of my parents and the lack of communication and the position that I felt like they were putting me in. And at the time you're young and, you know, nobody's talking to you. It's very easy to start to get very angry about that. And that's what happened to me is I started to rebel. I started to get angry at them. My relationship really never started to get better. I hated doing things with my parents. I hated being around them. So I spent as much time as possible away as I could. And I started making friends with, you know, probably some of the people you shouldn't make friends with. And, you know, we start partying, we start, you know, drinking to get away. I'm starting to hang out with people that are older and found myself in some weird situations, you know, and the whole like people not responding well to my confidence and my positivity and stuff, it didn't stop. Even if I was angry at my parents, like I always tried to kind of maintain that. That's just how I'm wired. And I would just find myself around at like parties and around people that would get mad just by looking at me, you know, and they're drinking and they want to fight. And then I'm getting in fights and people are like threatening me. And I'm like, what is going on? This is insane. This is insane. And I just continued to kind of spiral through Canyon City to the point where it was like, I had always been a good student. Like I said, my mom instilled that in me. I always played sports. That was just what I did, to where I stopped enjoying those things. I stopped enjoying sports. I stopped enjoying school, education. And, you know, I still, in high school, I lettered for academics. I lettered for football, basketball. But by my senior year, I turned 18 because I'm a little bit older. I went to school. My birthday's in September. I turned 18 in the beginning of my senior year. Yeah. I have almost all my credits to graduate. And I just ditched almost my whole senior year. I barely ever went to school. I just did as much as I could to just get away and to numb the pain and to try to escape that situation. And I was terrified too, because that time's running out. You know, you're either going to go to college or you're going to fail, right? Or you're going to go get a job or whatever. I didn't know what my options were. And I had no communication from my parents or my mom or anything. So I'm like, what do I do? And finally I go to them and I'm like, hey, how am I supposed to go to college? Like, what's the plan here? Oh, we can't, there's nothing we can do. I'm like, okay, so could we figure out options? No, I don't really know what you're going to plan on doing. And so I didn't think there was a future for me. Like, I'm like, I'm a good student. I've always had thoughts and goals of things that I wanted to be able to do. Nothing. And so I used that time, that last year, trying to live, or what I felt like living was at the time, as much as I possibly could. So I was just partying, ditching school, didn't care about anything at all. Anytime I was at school, I was just parking wherever I wanted, getting tickets, just, yeah. And I had made friends with a couple of people that were selling drugs. and I made relationships with those people. And, that's kind of my leeway into what ended up happening was I started to use those relationships and try to figure out how I could make some money. And, that experience actually, in like a lot of these experiences, and that's kind of where I'm going to go with this, is that that process of trying to figure that out was actually something that gave me interest in business, finances, understanding how to deal with money and how to make money and how to sell and how to do this stuff. So despite the fact that that's not the best thing, it was
dealing drugs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that was your first business experience.
Yeah. Outside of working at Subway, which I did.
Oh, you worked at Subway?
Yeah, I did.
I worked there. You were a sandwich artist.
Yes, I was.
Remember that? Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah, they gave you like a 25-cent raise or a
when you
nickel
became
or
the
something.
artist. Mm-hmm. My first raise was a nickel.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I did the lawn mowing, snow shoveling, all that, candy peddling, and then I worked at a Chinese restaurant here in Loveland. Do you remember the Red Dragon? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's over in the old Qdoba building. So I was a busboy there.
Yeah.
And then from there, I went over to Subway.
Yeah.
I worked like all through high school.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I smelled like Subway everywhere I went during that time for sure. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was the business aspect of that. And so I did that, and I did learn that from it, but there was also a lot of negative things that came with that. There were a couple times where I wake up to go get my car, and the window's broken out. People are trying to steal. They think I have money in my car. They're going to break into my car, steal money, and fights. A lot of things came with that. And it wasn't a good path I was going down at all. I graduated high school by the skin of my teeth. I had very few credits left, ditched pretty much that whole year. And I finally get to like the month before graduation, and the principal comes and says, "Hey man, you might not graduate." I'm like, oh, great. So luckily I went to night school. I finished all my credits in a week. I just went into night school, just
got it done,
pounded it out, got my credits, was able to go to graduation.
If you've got junk in your life or business that you need removed, reach out to one of our sponsors, Hulk Addicts. They are a full-service junk removal company, and they'll be able to take care of you at your home or your business to get rid of whatever you don't want. Check them out at hulkaddictsjunk.com. If you're a Christian small business owner, you have to check out one of our sponsors, the Foundry Advisory. They are a Christian peer advisory community here in Northern Colorado and the Front Range that is designed to give you encouragement, support, and insight to grow your business with other like-minded Christian business owners. Not only are they a sponsor and a partner of this podcast, but I'm also a member of their community. Check them out at thefoundryadvisory.com. As a small business owner, one of the things we will always need to address is a space to run our business. If you're looking to do a small tenant finish, maybe even build a building from the ground up, you've got to reach out to one of our sponsors, Mendel Construction. They are a full-service commercial contractor that can take care of your business needs to build the space and place of your dreams to run your business. Check them out at mendelandcompany.com.
And I'm so glad that he at least took the time to kind of give me a heads up. I still, to this day, I really appreciated that principle and him showing a little bit of care in a time that I feel like I wasn't getting a lot of that from people.
Yeah.
So I graduated high school that summer. I messed around as much as possible again. Didn't really have any path on what I was going to do. I think it was about midsummer. I was like, okay, I'm going to apply for college. And so I applied for college, went to the local community college there, I was going to go to school for business. That's what I decided I wanted to do. But I was having to pay for it myself pretty much, right? So I'm working full time, full schedule classes.
You still dealing drugs?
A little bit.
A little bit? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was just disconnected. I couldn't find myself getting passionate about going to school and working full time and trying to do all this. And that was the point where I decided something needed to change in my life. I needed to get out of Dodge. it wasn't a good place. There was nothing good that was really going on for me the entire time I was there. And my grandpa had told me that he had my dad's phone number if I ever wanted to reach out. And I decided it was time to reach out. And I go to my grandpa, he gives me his phone number, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to call him. I remember it was my 19th birthday. I pick up the phone. I'm on a shift at Subway. It's the morning. I call him, leave him a voicemail. He calls me back. He's like, I'm so glad to hear from you. You know, I hadn't talked to him for 6 years. I knew he had got out of jail. I was very angry at him too.
Yeah.
And we decided to arrange a time to meet in person. So I drove up to Fort Collins, knew a couple people that went to college there, decided I could crash at their place, meet my dad in person. I meet my dad in person. He doesn't even recognize me when he sees me, because when he saw me last time, I was 13. And he starts crying when he sees me, and we, you know, embrace and talk, and we were going to go to lunch. We decided that I was just going to go over to his place. He had a place in Loveland. We drove down to Loveland, and we just spent the afternoon just talking, trying to catch up. And it was the first time in so long that I felt like, outside of my grandparents, that I had a parent showing interest in trying to have a relationship with me.
Yeah.
And I'd tell him, I say, hey, like, is there any way maybe you could get me a job? You know, he had got back into commercial construction. He was doing really well for himself considering having to go through that experience. Had his own place, was working, was trying to pay off his debts and do well, buy things, completely sober. And he's like, yeah, I might be able to figure something out. He calls me probably about a week later and is like, hey, I might have a job for you if you're interested. I'm like, let's do it. So I drop out of college, pack up my little Honda Civic, and drove up to Loveland, Colorado. I ended up staying with him and working commercial drywall. And kind of started that next journey in my life. And quit dealing drugs, quit doing all that, trying to get that next start in my life and figure something out. And that was a wild experience itself. Working in commercial construction is no joke. Yeah. And it was also like fall going into winter. And I just remember like wearing as much clothes as possible so that I could work outside in the snow. And I am not a construction person at all, but I just had to make money and had to do something. And it was, I remember one of the things I realized in that is that in that environment, it's so hard and you find yourself in such crazy conditions that people will literally go to the porta potty just to take a break. Just to get out of the snow. That's a thing. And I'm like, wow, this is insane. Well, I ended up getting laid off shortly thereafter that. So I'm like, man, I just packed up all my stuff. I dropped out of college. I'm laid off. And so I had to kind of figure out what was next. And then I went and decided to work at a call center. And I did pretty well there in sales. I'm like, okay, you know, this is a little bit more in line with where I'm at. And I was there for probably about a year or so. And I was still partying a little bit at the time. Used up some of my sick days. And one day I was actually sick and I had to go into work. And I'm like sitting there working in a blanket, just shaking to death. And I turned to my boss. I'm like, I got to go. And they're like, if you leave, you're fired. I'm like, well, okay, I guess I'm getting fired then, because I don't think this is a good thing. So I ended up getting fired. I was probably unemployed there for 3-4 months, just trying to figure out how to get the next job. And during that time, one of my buddies, I let him borrow my car. He borrows my car. The engine explodes. So I now have no car. right? And luckily, he did try to do good by me, ended up finding me a job in return. And I went, he got me a job in landscaping. So I did landscaping, worked that whole summer in landscaping, going into the wintertime, did snow removal, waking up at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and just going and shoveling snow. And I decided during that time, I was like, I'm not a construction person. This just isn't for me. I need to figure this out. I know how my brain works, and I need to do something with business. And I spent that wintertime just doing snow removal, ended up applying for a job, and got the job, and it was cold call sales. And I remember the first day I went into the office and I sat down and I looked around and I'm like, I could do this. This is it. This is where it starts. And I just would go in every day, 2 Monster Energy drinks, a water, no lunch, no breaks. I would make as many calls as I possibly could to increase my chances of getting a sale. And I crushed it. And I did well enough to get recognized. And then they had one of their clients. And so a little backstory, they were a outsourced solution for publications throughout the United States. It was 2008, 2009. All of those print publications were struggling with the recession, with the advancement in technology. And so they were having to outsource a lot of their services to people because they couldn't afford to do it in-house anymore. And so this place would do their customer service, sales, right? Advertising, marketing. And there was a business that came to us. They wanted to open up a whole new department. They needed somebody to lead that department. I interviewed for that job and I ended up getting the job. And that was my first initial relationship with a mentor I had, which I'm still grateful for to this day because he saw something in me. He gave me a chance. He put in extra time and developing me, training me, teaching me spreadsheets, finance, a lot of stuff. And so I worked with him for probably about 6 months. Well, at the end of that 6 months, we had a disagreement with the owner of that business, and he decided to speak up about it. The owner decides to fire him. And I remember he came to me and he was like, "It's going to be okay. You got this. And they're probably going to put you in my role." And I'm like, oh my God, I'm 20 years old. And sure enough, they did. And they promoted me, but under circumstances that I had to work that job with no raise and had to do well enough over the course of 6 months to actually earn the title and the promotion with a raise. And so I was grinding at this and trying to figure it out, how to pick up all the pieces. The first 3 days I was in that role, a client had to come visit. And I'm 20 years old. This client is probably the later part of their career, probably 60s, I want to say. They come out, there's a new guy, 20 years old, and I'm having to like entertain and try to manage a relationship and do that. And that was a big reason why I grew a beard.
Yeah.
I did not want them to know I was 20 years old at all. And luckily it went well. And that experience did end up being the initial launch pad of what became kind of my career.
Yeah.
I had multiple clients throughout the United States. At one point in time, I was managing about 110 people between 2 different locations. I learned training, development, sales, customer service, hiring, firing, creating schedules for people, having to keep track of it, where everybody was. And it was a tremendous amount of experience that I still credit to this day for a lot of my strengths as a leader. But I saw the writing on the wall. I wanted to get into digital marketing because what we were doing was we were kind of patching up print and trying to help them with the transition to digital. And a lot of them, they're moving to like a digital model. And I'm like, well, that's not the real digital model. I'd really like to get into more formal digital marketing. And so I'm applying for jobs, trying to figure out what's going to be next. Local company, Madwire, was kind of known for that in the area. I'd driven by it, looked fun, looked like something I could maybe be a part of. And they weren't hiring for the role I wanted at the time. And they wanted to hire me on in sales. And I'm like, well, I got like a salary position right now. I'm kind of a little bit more comfortable with that. I don't know if I want to be in sales. I've done sales. Okay. I went and worked somewhere else. Instead, I ended up getting a job at a different marketing company. And I took that job. Well, I had to quit my job I was at. I wasn't making super good money, right? And I'm taking a chance. I was kind of terrified to take the leap to the next thing. They flew us out to Dallas, Texas for training. And I remember it was the first time I ever got on an airplane in my life. As I land in Dallas, Texas, and you turn off airplane mode on your phone, I get a notification on my phone that my checking account just overdrafted. And I'm in Dallas, Texas, no money, don't know what I'm going to do, right? Luckily, the first day we go into training, they give us all gift cards to have spending money. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to get through this. And I did that. We went through training, ended up doing really well in that company. Well, about 6 months later, I get laid off. I'm like, wow, here we go again. Well, I spent probably 2 weeks. I was applying for jobs, ended up applying at Madwire, ended up getting the job that I was looking for. And I was able to be a part of that organization, under 150 people up to over 600, and eventually back under 6. When I went there, I felt like my experience spoke towards the fact that I could really work my way up quickly. So that was my goal. I'm kind of looking around at everybody and I'm like, yeah, like I have a ton of experience. I can do this. So I did. I worked really hard. I ended up working myself into a director role. I was there for about 8 years. And that's where I met my wife, and it was a tremendous experience and it was a crazy thing to be a part of. But as like about 2019, I'm about to get married, there was a lot of things changing around me in that organization. And I'm about to start a family and I'm about to get married. And one thing after the other just kept changing and changing and changing and changing. And it became really, really, really stressful and it weighed on us, and we get married. My wife gets pregnant with her first. We're going through all this stuff. 2020 happens, COVID, we're all sent home. My wife's pregnant as can be. Yep. They restructure the whole entire company. We're working from home. We go through the pandemic, and then we have our daughter. And my daughter was the thing in my life that really painted so much clarity of the fact that I couldn't continue to be in this like volatile profession of where I was at the time. I really needed to work on trying to get stability for our family. And my wife goes on maternity leave, comes back to a review of how well she did while she was out. And I'm like, dude, that's messed up. You can't do that. And that was it. That was the point where I just knew that I needed to start to try to figure out what was next.
Yeah.
And so 2020, we go through it. I work really hard and I'm just trying to make sure I'm crossing off all boxes because if they continue to restructure things, I didn't want to lose my job. And I did phenomenal. And 2021 comes around, another restructuring. I'm like, dude, I can't keep doing this. All right, it's time. I'm doing this. So I start looking for jobs. I ended up getting a job as a fractional CMO. One of my buddies who was a really good friend of mine, he actually introduced me to my wife, married us. He's doing the same, looking for jobs, gets a job. But we start having discussions about entrepreneur life and things we can invest in and what we want to do. And we both get these jobs. We end up leaving the company. Simultaneously, my wife leaves the company. And as we leave, we start to have people reaching out to us just based on our reputation and what we know if we can help them with digital marketing. And we're like, okay, maybe that's part of this. That's what we should do. We should figure this out.
And you didn't really have a plan to start a digital marketing company.
I didn't want to.
Left.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I wanted to do something else. But, God has a mysterious way of working. And I'm very grateful for that. And I think he shined light on the fact that that's going to be a part of it. And so I just started our company, Imprint Digital. And at the time I had a fractional CMO job, which was kind of like how I was going to pay the bills while I start a business. I'm going to do these two things simultaneously. My partner is also doing the same. And I remember I told the place that hired me, I said, hey, this is only part-time. I am starting a business. My goal is I'm going to stack these two things next to each other. Whatever wins, whatever adds more stability to my life is what I'm going to go with. And the company I started won that battle. And everybody knows, starting a business is challenging. We went through a lot of struggles. Meanwhile, we're both quitting our careers and jobs of stability and all this stuff. We sell our house. We decide to move to free up some cash to get through that season. Yep. 2022 comes around. The business is really starting to kind of pick up a little bit. We hire some of our first people. And Father's Day of 2022, I get served papers. I'm being sued for hundreds of thousands of dollars from the previous company I was with. And I'm just shocked. I'm shocked because what I did know was that we had employee agreements, and I knew that what those circumstances were was that you could do things, but what you shouldn't do is you shouldn't steal employees or clients. I'm like, perfect. I am going to toe that line as much as possible and make sure that I always follow that. And that's what we were doing. And the numbers and looking at this, I'm shocked. I don't even know what to do. I think my life is literally ending. I'm about to lose everything. How do I do this? What am I going to do? I can't afford this. So I thought I was going to have to shut it down. And I remember I had a conversation with my father-in-law, and I'm just venting to him, and he's just listening. And he tells me, he says, when you go to sleep at night and you turn off the light to walk to your bed, do you turn back around and turn on the light because you can't see where you're going? Or do you keep walking to get to your bed? Yep. I'm like, I know what he's saying. He says I need to keep going. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure out how to get through this. And we did. So we decided to get a lawyer, do what we needed to do, try to get through it, because we knew that we didn't do anything wrong and that would eventually play itself out. We just had to get through it. We had to be able to figure out how to afford it. And so we did. We went through the process, and we got to the point where we were about to go to litigation, and they decided they didn't want to move forward. And we won, and we were able to keep the company going. And that year I had my son, our second kid. And I'm dealing with all of this stuff, and I think that it's really important, and what I want people to hear in this is that, despite all of the challenges and things that I had to go through, the anger, the frustration, all of these different things, I to this day have an amazing relationship now with my dad. I mean, he is who he is, and that's fine. But he shows genuine appreciation and interest in trying to be a part of my life. And I'm so grateful for that, because had it not been us reconnecting and me moving back up here, who knows where I'd be? Probably be in jail or dead. Honestly, I think that's the direction things were going. And that you don't need to be a victim of your circumstances. If, I remember the moment where my dad was getting arrested at football practice and going through that experience. And I remember the internal dialogue that I had in my head was I knew that the stuff I was going through in that point of my life was traumatic. And that traumatic experiences typically lead to a lot of problems that people can have in their life. And I kept telling myself over and over and over again, you can't let this get to you. You can't let this get to you. You got to keep your head on. And there were moments in my life where I felt like I almost did let it get to me. But that dialogue that I had in my head of just keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. You're going to be okay. You're smart. You are here for a reason. You're going to be able to figure this out if you're just willing to do so. Eventually led me to a path to where I am this person sitting in front of you today. And I'm very grateful. I have a business. I have a lot of things that we've been able to be a part of. I have an amazing daughter, an amazing son. My wife is absolutely incredible. And we are in a place where I feel like there's just continued blessings in our future. And I'm just grateful for God, and I'm grateful for my trust in him and understanding that, you know, you can figure it out. You know, you don't have to be a victim.
Yeah. What do you say to somebody that's going through, you know, any one of the similar challenges, experiences, parts of life that they're going through right now? Like, what would you look back and tell those different stages and phases of Alex?
Yeah. I would say that if you're going through any sort of challenge that's relatable with that at all, try to be willing to think far enough ahead about what that future is going to be like, because that day seems really long. That week seems really long, but life is much bigger than that. There's so much time ahead, and the decisions that you're going to make that day, they have an effect on later. So once you can actually take that step back and have some perspective of what the future is, that what you want to be, that's going to allow you to start to put the actions in place on a daily basis to help you get there. Even if it's just a little bit at a time. Because like I was explaining through this story, it's like, you know, I went through really destructive moments, but little by little, I started to try to take small actions that I felt like were going to at least give me a path forward to be able to have a long life, to be able to do things in the future. Because there were points in my life where I thought I wasn't supposed to live very long. I wasn't going to have a long life. It just didn't seem like it was in the cards for me. Yeah. So,
man, I appreciate you coming in and sharing your story today, Ben.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for making a space where, you know, people can feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
Because like I said, there's probably, I could count on two hands how many people have ever really heard some of this stuff. And yeah, I think that you've done a good job in putting a platform in place that allows people to feel okay to be vulnerable and comfortable telling that stuff.
Yeah. No, and thanks for coming out and doing it. And you still gotta come out and do it. And what's interesting is through, you know, you had so much go on. So Alyssa was just on the podcast, right? And she talked a lot about this, but you guys had so much life happen, right? From like marriage to kids to business to career change to another kid to COVID to lawsuit. And specifically in the lawsuit, like I remember the time we sat down, the Thai joint right down here, and we're having Thai food and we're talking about getting into business together, and then we're in business together and we're doing business together. And that whole time you're going home every day, like, shit, I might not have a business tomorrow. Like I might get sued and lose everything. Yeah. And then I remember when you were actually able to talk about it, right? Once it's settled and you were able to share, you're like, yeah, here's what was going on while we were working with you. So just to see that like steadfastness and just keeping eyes on the prize, you know, as you're going through a lot of adversity. And I think in business, you know, we can't lose that focus of the day to day. Yeah. You know, like we've got something big going on over here. All right, we'll step over, we'll address this, but like we've got we've got business to tend to.
Yeah. Entrepreneurship is like it's like a life inside of a life where you're all of this stuff like, and that's like why I love the experience that I had. Like, I am so grateful for all of this stuff that I just talked about, because I wouldn't be who I am today had it not been those experiences. Those experiences I had to go through, like having to try to overcome that mentally, and figure out how to move forward and get to the position I'm in today. All of that is like a muscle. It was something that I had to go through and train from such an early age that I think, like, to this day, the person I am and how I'm able to try to conduct myself on a daily basis, like, I honestly just feel like those experiences really allowed me to develop those chops and be able to be in a position where it's like you're going through a lawsuit and you have to come every day and make the best of it and try to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
So I just, it's a crazy story, but I just love it. I love it. I love the fact that I had the life that I have. It's incredible.
Well, man, I appreciate you sharing it with us, and we're wrapping up. Cool. So you've been here before, so you've done this before. We've got our color wall, right? Our make your mark, leave your mark wall, and you picked another one of your favorite colors, which I think is the Imprint brand color.
It is.
We're pretty darn close to it. And what is the statement that you want to leave with the world when you leave it?
You're not a victim. Never lose hope.
Love it. Alex Wells. That's a wrap.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for tuning into this week's episode. Would you make sure to please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel here? And please share this episode with somebody whose life it will make better. Are you a faith-based father and you want to have the adventure of a lifetime with your son? You have to check out the father-son hike of a lifetime on the Camino de Santiago in Spain. June of 2025, I'm going to be taking a small group of fathers and sons over to Spain. We are going to spend 6 days, hike 70 miles, have some of Spain's most amazing cuisines, see some of the most beautiful places and spaces, but most importantly, spend time together bonding with our sons. If you're interested in this adventure, check out mattshoup.com. When you get to the website, click the Gentle Art of Leadership button and hover down to the father-son hike of a lifetime.